Welcome to another episode of the Silman Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Battisto. Today's guest is Mike Mendoza. Mendoza was my coach at CSB for 2 years before he left the Boise State. They unfortunately cut their program a year after that. And then he coached at Northeastern College in Colorado before now being the head coach at Colorado Mesa University, a Division II school in Colorado. So very excited to have him on the show, and I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. I don't think it's so weird to see like your first name like in your bio, because I still have you in my contact as just Coach Mendoza. I don't think I could ever, like, calling you Michael would just sound so weird.
I agree with you on that one, Brian.
We all call our coaches for life. That's an honor.
Right. I actually had I had a dream last night, and you could say it was a nightmare. But no, I just was dreaming that I was running on the pavement. And I look around, everybody's running on the pavement too. And we're at CSUB and we're running the course. And I don't think I was late. I think I was on time. But it basically just turned into, it just wasn't the same course. Like, it was like I was running through, at one point there was a jungle. And then there was like some traps that I had to avoid. And there was some temptation. Like, there was like a buffet that was just randomly on the course. And I had to maneuver through that. And somehow I made it out to the other side, and just me and one other person just were able to keep running. But I don't know if it was because I knew that you were going to be on, the show tonight. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird thing. And I woke up, I'm like, yep. I don't know if this is PTSD or flashbacks or what. But yeah, I don't know. That's how I woke up. I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for this podcast.
Nice. Yeah, I have your course times if you want me to pull them up. I actually talked to Brandon Doyle maybe a couple weeks ago, and we were talking because he just had knee surgery, and so he was talking about how he's like does laps in his house, and he's like got it down. He's like timing himself, and just flashbacks of the course, and made me think like, oh yeah, like I still have like course times on my hard drive. Do you want me to pull them up? So I sent him some pics of his course times, and yeah, it's funny.
Do you actually have me in Everett's?
I can pull it up probably right now. I have a huge flash drive. I'll pull it up. Everett, what do you think your time was? Everybody always talks about their times, and it was always faster than, what
it depends on what year you want to look at. I mean, if you're looking at my time as a freshman versus my time as a junior.
So let's clarify, because Al, you don't know what the course is, right?
No, is it a 1 mile, 2 mile course?
It's I think at one point either you or Coach Orozco clocked it, and I think it's like 2.7 or 2.8 miles. It's around the campus. So we used to start on the track, and then you'd run down kind of like the main Roadrunner Way, and then you'd wrap around on Campus Drive or Campus Park or something like that, and then there's like a fence. So you run through some gravel, and then you come around to Stockdale, and then you run around. We'd go down, I don't remember the name of the street. And then you kind of loop around the rec center, and then you'd come out to the front, and then you'd run up to back to the track. So it's basically like a campus
cross country per se, right? Cross country.
Yeah, it pretty much.
Everett, do you remember your first course and what it was like?
Yeah, it was horrible. I didn't make time. I remember that.
Time was like 17 minutes or 16 minutes, right?
18 minutes.
18. You didn't make 18 minutes?
I know, right?
Oh my gosh.
Him and maybe one heavyweight. I think almost everybody did. I mean, like it was like, and maybe it was 2.4. And the course changed because the campus changed, because they built, new parts to the campus. So the course and the, pathway changed, but it might have gotten a little bit longer. But still 18 minutes, Everett.
What was your fastest time, Everett?
If I had to guess, I would say probably somewhere in the upper 16s, probably by my fourth year.
Was that under the Mendoza era, or was that under the Rivera era? Because there's kind of an asterisk, I feel like, because they changed. So after you left, Coach, like they changed the start point from the track to the wrestling room. And I think it was like a little bit I think we kind of just eyeballed it. I think it was a little bit shorter. So
I think it was a little bit shorter as well, but that 16 would have been under Mendoza still. It would have been like Mendoza's last year there. I probably was in like the upper 16s by then.
But I dropped like a whole minute like that following year. So in my head, I think I got faster, but then in my gut, I was like, no, you didn't. They just made it shorter. Is it like deep in the hard drive?
Yeah, I'm trying.
It's okay.
I'm trying to pay attention and then watch and then look. But yeah, it's there's a ton on this hard drive. So yeah, I'll find it.
Do you remember? Go ahead, Al.
Oh, Coach Mendoza. So the guys that didn't make it, what was the motivation that you put them through to get them to motivate them to get that time?
I'm trying to remember. You guys might remember better than I do.
Fear, disappointment.
We would do more. We run the course extra on the weekend.
On Saturday. That's right.
On Saturday, it's on your day off. You run the course again.
That's right.
Well, this is like Bud's training.
Yeah.
I remember we were told maybe my freshman year that if you didn't PR, you wouldn't get the new wrestling shoes.
Yes.
So I remember I think I ran my fastest was the first time I did it. And it was like, I don't know, maybe like a little over 16. And I remember every time I would go, I'd be within like, 10 or 15 seconds off from beating it. And then I remember being like maybe one of the last ones that didn't get shoes. And that was like, I guess I'm not getting shoes. Like I didn't deserve it.
So who has the record?
I think maybe Ambrose was pretty fast.
Maybe while we were on the team, but I don't know for us, who would have been there. He was definitely like within the 15s though, for sure.
Ambrose was fast. I remember Ruben Franklin being really fast. Ian Nickel was up there. I think Coleman Hammond was really fast. After you were gone, Alex Hernandez was pretty fast. And it was weird. I don't know, maybe just because I put on a bunch of muscle or just because I was a senior, I actually got really slow my last year.
Really?
Yeah. But it's okay. I mean, you can keep looking through it, but it's not that big of a deal. We don't need that.
Yeah, no, you don't. Yeah. You just we'll keep rolling and I'll just keep playing.
Who do you remember, do you think is the fastest in the time that you've been there from athlete to coach?
Oh.
We didn't even ask what your course time either. What was your course time?
So mine was 13:49. It was the fast time. So, and Bobby Soto.
Yeah.
Bobby Soto could run. And so my freshman year was his senior year. And I never beat him. Like he was always in front. But one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, I woke up early. I like had a little bit to drink, not too much, just some water, and just like got there, got real warmed up. And I'm like, today is the day. And I booked it. And that was the day I ran 13:49, but he was in front of me and who knows what he got, but I just couldn't pass him. Like he just wouldn't give it up. So yeah, Bobby Soto.
He's a couple years older than you.
He was his senior my freshman year. So yeah, he's older.
It's got to be like, I'm not going to let that freshman beat me.
Yeah, but yeah. So once you graduated, then I took the lead. But yeah, yeah.
I remember I think the biggest thing that helped me the most was the feeling of like you have to compete in everything. And I feel like that's something that I don't know. I feel like that's something that maybe is hard with this current generation. Is I don't necessarily see it as much. And maybe it's just, I don't know if it's just the generation of the kids that are there. But is that something that you feel like, I'm sure you did it intentionally when you were coaching us. Is that something that you've continued to do at all the different places that you've been at?
Yeah, it's changed really. And I mean, there's a lot of different ways. Bottom line is getting in shape, but also competing. And I think running does something different than other ways of conditioning. That's like you against yourself. It's like you pushing yourself until you're uncomfortable. and then like pushing past that wall, you know, and then you get used to that feeling of exhaustion, and then still pushing. And so, you know, we used to just run the course, and you know, our Coach Kerr would just give the time. He would just give the time, and that was it. We didn't really chart it, we didn't track it, but you knew what your time was, just because, you know, if you cared, you knew what your time was, right? And but then there came a point where like I rostered it and then wrote the times down and then posted it on the board, and then you knew what your PR was. You knew if you were slower, you know, how much slower you were, because it just charted that the whole season. But you know, the value, I think, in running, at least I always felt like I was just pushing myself, and you're chasing the guy in front of you, and yeah, just running as hard as you can. I mean, obviously you get in a little bit of shape there, but you know, wrestling shape is you know, is a little bit different, but there's different ways to train in other arenas to help your wrestling. And I felt like, you know, the mental side of that, the mental like training that you get from running is valuable if you're running hard, right?
Yeah, I think running hard is a good way to put it, especially if you go from talking about the course to the stairs.
Yeah.
Like, literally, there would be, I remember maybe one of the funnier things is like, you know, because we'd kind of warm up and we'd jog around the building. And Alphonse, this is the Cardo Center. So like at each corner, there's a stairwell. Mm-hmm. So we would run across the grass, up the stairwell, across kind of like this walkway. And then we'd go down the stairs and across again. It would be like a big loop. And we'd go for what, maybe 30 minutes, maybe less.
So it was 15 minutes. Then and it's funny you say 30 minutes because it feels like 30 minutes, even though
it feels like forever.
Right. 15 minutes, then 12, then 10, then 7. Yeah. So, but it was, you know, we'd warm up for a good 5 minutes, you know, and then you'd run for 15 minutes and then cool down for, you know, a few minutes. So in the end, it probably took that long, but that you're only running, you know, by the end, we're running just 7 minutes, you know, 7-minute match.
Yeah. I don't even have like a concept of time. It was just like, you know, if somebody, especially being a freshman, if somebody said left, you moved over. Otherwise, you were going to get punched in the back of the head. I remember Sean Pollock was running, and Tyler Lawrence was running next to him. And, you know, Tyler was also a freshman, and he was kind of maybe, you know, a little bit tired, maybe feeling a little bit sorry for himself. His head was down, and Sean just kind of looked at him and then looked at him again and just lowered his shoulder and just dropped right into him and just sent him flying just for no reason, you know. But honestly, like, I think that kind of environment, I think for one, outside of a competition or practice setting, I think we were all super close. Like I felt like I was like really like we were really hard on each other. And, you know, obviously, you know, there were times where things would maybe kind of flirt with the line a little bit. But outside of that, like, we were super close. And I think it's that kind of environment where I think you see some really great teams kind of evolve, you know, and I think that environment maybe looks a little bit different at different places. But how would you maybe describe like the environment that you try to cultivate right now at Colorado Mesa?
Yeah, I think just, you know, I think a team that is close, like you're talking about, helps build a championship like team. Like, you got to be there for each other. You got to be close. You got to trust each other. You got to want to push each other. You got to love each other. There's so much like that comes to the relationship on a team. And I think building that, and it's through training. Like, obviously you get that, but even outside the room, like we do a lot. And we did team retreats with you guys, right? Go camping. And so we still do that. We did that this last fall and the previous fall. Yeah, and we've changed some things up. Like, we do a Saturday lift now, just so that we can, after the lift, go and, you know, have breakfast together as a team. And you got to think, and one thing that's different here is, you know, your first 2 years you live on campus. So your first year or two, you know, sometimes guys will appeal and get off after their first year, but guys live on campus. So there's that separation of guys that live on campus, guys that live off campus. And so sometimes they don't know each other as well as, as they otherwise would have. You guys all, moved into a house or apartment, and there was, good 3 or 4 or 5 people in one household, and it would be one household, connecting with another household. It just, naturally you guys did that. But when you have on campus and off campus, it's a little bit different. So being able to like have a team breakfast on Saturdays with our on campus guys and off campus guys, which of course the off campus guys love it because it's, for them, it's like a free meal, so.
I'm gonna have to steal that idea. I think it's hard sometimes, maybe on the high school level, just getting guys, because a lot of them don't have cars, and just trying to get them all in one spot. But I feel like that's maybe something we can maybe even replicate, even just a couple of times a year, just trying to get outside the wrestling room and do something a little bit different, just especially sharing a meal together.
So Mike,
go ahead, Al.
No, Mike, I coach at Rocky Mountain High School in Meridian. And although I didn't coach him, I coached with his dad, Caden Hine.
Yep.
I believe still wrestles with you. And he's talked nothing but positive about the program and the hard work. And he's come into some of our practice, help some of our kids. So, he's talked about the sort of the structure, the discipline, and the intensity of the training, which he likes. So.
Yeah, and interesting. Like it's changed. Like I think I've probably, changed throughout the years. But like you'd be surprised to hear this, but we didn't run this year, and so like we run in the preseason. Like in the past couple of years, we've ran in the preseason. So we've ran like every program since then. But like here, I've been here 5 years, and we ran the first 3 years, and then the last 2 years we haven't. So. But yeah, I'm sure you guys are probably like, what? Why did we have to run? Why'd you change now? Some guys that, and one of the things that we do, like, we meet with our guys and some of the guys like the running and some guys don't. And to me, I don't care how we get in shape, as long as we're training hard and whichever way we can to get in shape. But ultimately wrestling gets you in the best shape. So,
well, I think too, like, just if you look at how other teams are maybe kind of organizing their training cycles, like I feel like across the board, there's been significantly less running, and I think it's, I don't know if it's just because the way that wrestling has evolved in terms of kids have been wrestling longer by the time they've gotten into college. Maybe that has something to do with it. Like, I mean, I freaking hate running now, just pounding on concrete with my knees. But when I was younger, I was like, I'm going to run all the time. Cause I was like, in my mind, I'm like, that's how I need to get in shape. But it's like you said, it's just like, if you could spend that time wrestling though, how does that work on the Division II level? Cause I know you have like limited times that you can have contact. I can't remember the phrasing off the top of my head, but contact with the people on the team. Is that something to where it's like, you get only so many wrestling practices, or is it so many, times or hours that you can work with them in the preseason and off season?
Yeah, that's the same Division I too. So like you're limited on the number of hours. Like during the season, you're allowed 20 hours, which, in a typical training week, like you're probably hitting 10 to 13, maybe 14 hours, maybe on the high end, just athletic training. And then in the preseason, you're limited to 8 hours. And so, we obviously, do a little bit less and then have open rooms for the guys to get workouts in the preseason. And so starting on that like October 10th date, and for us, we don't really care about that. Like some people will do like October 10th and like that's the kickoff date. But for us, it just depends on our training cycle and the calendar, what makes sense for us to start, whether it be the 10th or the 13th, doesn't really matter. But yeah, 8 hours in the preseason, which you fill that up real easy, and then 20 hours during the season. And it typically, again, it's like 14 hours maybe.
So, yeah. Mike, you come from a higher altitude of the kids coming to your program. Well, on average, how long does it take the kid to your kids get used to it, to come from lower altitudes up in that area, to get acclimated to that level of?
Yeah, we're not too high. I think we're 4,600 feet.
Okay,
I want to say
yeah,
it's our elevation, so not
yeah,
too bad. It's 4,200, but not too
42.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're coming at sea level, like you might feel it a little bit, but
Mhm.
within a couple weeks, like you're probably adjusted well. Now,
Yeah,
when you go
I think
yeah, I think you
Boise's 2,600 feet, I think. So just a few
oh,
thousand. Yeah.
yeah.
Whereas
Mhm.
Bogus is around 4. So so yeah, it's a little bit different. What's Reno? Like Reno's up like 6 or 7, isn't it?
I think they're 5
Five,
between 5
five.
and 6. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember wrestling tournaments there, and just out going from the Bay Area to there to altitude, you had to train for at least a day or so just get your lungs
Mhm.
cleared. Yeah, so that's cool.
I never really noticed any of that stuff, like the changes in elevation, like
Hmm.
whether it was when we wrestled in Reno or if we dueled Wyoming or any of those places. I never really noticed a difference.
You had some good
Maybe it was
Wyoming,
just
yeah,
what
crazy because Wyoming is like, I don't know, are they 7,600, 7,700? It's up there. So like that's one where, yeah, if you're going from sea level to Wyoming, like you're feeling that.
Mhm.
well.
Most
So what was funny is we dueled them, and Russell was wrestling. Might have been Meredith, or I can't remember who came after. But they have it on their mat where it's like, how's your oxygen? Like they
yeah.
actually have it written on their mat. And I remember, you'll appreciate this, Mark Penachek. Um, they saw that, because Russell's got a pretty good gas tank, and Meredith was getting a little bit tired. So Mark, in the middle of the duel, those guys are wrestling, and Meredith's kind of this and this, and Mark's like, "How's your oxygen?" And
Yeah.
like everybody just started cracking up because it was like dead silence, like the crowd was quiet, and then he just rips it, and everybody was just cracking up. I
So
never noticed any of that stuff.
You got good
Yeah.
lungs, my friend.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe not anymore. Especially being in this Bakersfield air 10
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of a time that I really noticed the altitude. I mean, but we would always get to places early too. I mean, you're there, you're working out. Obviously, depending on how high it is, it's going to take more than a day. But I don't think, at least while I was there, I don't remember traveling where extremely high. So, but like Reno, I don't remember being extra tired or fatigued in that sense.
Yeah, because I being in Boise now, 2,600 going to Reno, I don't feel it too much. But when I lived in the Bay Area going to Reno, I felt it because we're almost just barely above sea level there. And
Mhm.
you'd feel it there, but I don't feel it now that I go back because we're a little bit higher altitude. So that's cool.
Coach Mendoza, Everett had a really good story when I talked to him on the phone earlier. And I'm not sure if maybe he's a little bit too shy or maybe just waiting for his moment. But I'd like to give him that moment now.
Oh yeah, I was just telling Brian about when we were, I think was it Orlando a couple years ago, for that coaches clinic. I think
Yeah.
that would have been, yeah, 2019 maybe. And I was telling him about how I was hanging out with Adam a lot. I would go out with Adam every day, and every day you would give me crap, like the next day, about not inviting you places. Because I would go hang out with Adam, and we would go like grab drinks for something that night, and then you'd see me like, "Hey, what'd you do last night?" And I was like, "Oh, Adam and I went here." You'd be like, "You give me crap about it. Like, why didn't you invite me? Why did you tell me?" And I think it was like the final day you went out with us, and it was when we watched the fights. Actually, it was when Henry Cejudo beat Mighty Mouse for the title. And I remember talking to Adam like the next day about it and being like, Mendoza's a really cool guy to hang out with. I was telling him that maybe it's just because he was my coach, and I thought of him differently because he's my coach. I said, but he's just super cool to just hang out with casually. And Adam's like, yeah, it's different when he's not your coach anymore. It's just a different dynamic. And so I was telling Brian about that.
You know what? I feel much better now because I've been living with that grief of wondering why you just haven't and why you weren't inviting me. But now I understand why. So yeah, I feel better now that you have
Happy to
explained
hear
that.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think like I really understood like how funny you were too, like your sense of humor. Because I think
Hmm.
at the time, like, I have this thing where I take everything like pretty serious. And I remember we were at a team retreat, and you basically bullied your way to the finals.
Oh yeah, I remember
like the
that.
last group, and no one was going to vote you out because you said, "All right, well, we might have monkey rolls tomorrow. Like if I'm wrong and you guys vote me out, like we
I think
might have
Tyler
monkey rolls
Lawrence was
tomorrow."
the only guy on the team that was like, no, Mendoza is wrong, and just would not budge on it. And everyone else was just quiet and would not back him up. No
And I
one
was
was
like,
willing
"Dude,
to
it's
back
not
him up
worth it.
at all.
It's
Yeah.
not worth it."
I wouldn't do that. That doesn't sound like me.
I think we did monkey rolls in the dirt the next
Yeah,
day.
true
We
story.
did, because I think
I'm trying to remember who it was because there was somebody.
It might have
it was
been.
either like Gamble or Lawrence,
I
someone.
think it was those two and maybe one more.
Yeah. And no one else was willing to back him up though, but they would not budge at all. That was a fun trip though.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I was kind of looking back and doing some research, and it's interesting, like, how you've kind of coached at literally pretty much all the levels except for like Division III and NAI. Like you start off, you're a grad assistant at Adams State, then you came back to CSUB where you're assistant, and then you were a head coach. Then you left to Boise, and then when they cut the program, you coached at National JUCO, and then now you're at Colorado Mesa. When you think about, all these different locations that you've been at, what would you say maybe are some things that you've kind of carried with you, and maybe how have maybe coaching at these different places in these different areas, how has it maybe influenced your coaching philosophy over the years?
Yeah, I think when you change your environment, like you kind of evaluate things. Like obviously you go to a new program and you think, okay, what things am I going to, bring in here? And really, you go to a different level or a different team, it's a different dynamic, and what every team's going to be different. And so sometimes you got to look at like the makeup of your team. Are you a young team? Are you an older team? Are you experienced team? Where are you at, like strength wise too? And that influences like your approach to maybe training or to the things that you do. But I mean, there's so many pieces to this, but I think of like, obviously going to junior college was a totally different level. I mean, you're dealing with first and second year guys. So there's things that you've got to really emphasize with those first and second year guys. You don't have the third, fourth, or fifth year guys that are there as examples to bring them up. So you've got to really emphasize things and probably provide a little bit more mentorship or leadership, and that doesn't exist with guys in your team. And then really have like those second year guys really help with those first year guys. And then next thing you know, those guys are graduating and you're bringing in a whole new class. So it's a little bit more paying attention to like just the things you need to get across, and maturity. Going into college is definitely a time where like, you're figuring things out, as a freshman. And so just helping them with that adjustment more than maybe is needed at a 4-year school. So that's one thing I would say that was glaring in that transition. Yeah.
It had to have been great. Maybe if you think about how much, time and energy you put into administrative stuff at CCB, fundraising, talking to boosters, alumni, things like that, and then going to Boise State. And obviously, that stuff never really stops, but I think maybe the intensity of it obviously had to have been lessened. Was that maybe a little bit relieving? Now, I know obviously that was probably a big reason why you left and wanted to go to that job. It was just a better opportunity too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that was ultimately it. I mean, yeah, and then going to Boise was like, wow, like we can do some damage here. Like this is going to be fun. And you like you said, you're pouring energy into a program, whether it be into administrative side or fundraising side or recruiting side, like, and you just realize like, going there was like, okay, yeah, one, having another full-time staff person, is a significant difference. And then a school where you're fully funded scholarship wise is, a significant difference. So yeah, you just pour a little bit more energy and time into training and doing the things that are a little bit more fun as a coach. You still have the administrative side that doesn't change no matter where you're at or what level you're at, but certainly going from there and then going to Boise State, it was a relief in some areas, where he's able to coach, but that obviously was short-lived, and then going to, Northeastern, where you go to a smaller, school where, you've got people doing, wearing more hats on the administrative side and maybe less that they're doing, for example, you go to a website of a junior college, you may not see very, very much compared to a, Division I program or a program that just has, sports information where it's a little bit, more involved with more help and more people. And so the administrative change from one school to the next makes a big difference too, like how much administrative support you have. But don't know if I answered where we were going with that, but they're all different in so many different ways. Every school has been different, and every time you do that, you learn something, and take something from each school. So
how do you get like the family to be down for all these moves?
Yeah, that was not, obviously with the first move, it was like, hey, this, is a big decision. It's so funny, you watch David Taylor, now the Oklahoma State coach. I don't know if you saw his interview, but he talked about, they talked about when did you know? And when did you make this decision? And I imagine, can imagine what's going through his head. He's thinking, it's a quick decision. They reach out and then all of a sudden it's it moves very fast. And he's realizes this is a lot. His whole, he said, he had been, in Pennsylvania for a certain number of years where he was rooted and had a business and had, his wrestling club. And it's hey, you're moving your whole family from, across the state, across the country, and
his animals too.
And his animals. That's right. Yeah. But, I think, for me, for our family, I think the first move, my kids were young, they were, in kindergarten and then not yet in school. So that, they're pretty resilient. And so, that move was easy for us, a family. It was a good move for us. And that was an easy decision, I want to say. But, that second move was okay, my wife's from Colorado. So that's kind of what led to that change. The AD had reached out from the junior college, after Boise State dropped their program, and just probably put the perfect email at the right time. And, then come to find out it's a few hours from where my wife was from. And so, I look back and I think okay, yeah, I met my wife in Colorado at Adams State, and then, drug her out to California. So her family's in Colorado. So I moved her from where her family was. And, which is easy for a coach, because when you go to another program, you're immediately in another family. You got a bunch of wrestlers, and there's a ton of relationship, and you're just engulfed in, a wrestling program, and it's just very easy adjustment for a coach. But for a wife, it's different. And, so, then my wife's twin sister moves out to Bakersfield, and she's living there for, probably 5 years. And then we up and moved to Boise. And so, that was hard, moving away from, from her family there. But, it was a good move. And then, again, short-lived. And then making that decision, my next move was okay, let's get near her family and just kind of catch our breath. And then once I got to Northeastern, I was there for a year, and then the head coach at Colorado Mesa reached out and said, hey, I just lost my assistant coach. I need an assistant coach, and I'm planning to retire and looking for somebody to take over the program. And so I had just been there a year. I had just recruited. And I mean, I'm looking like, and it's funny, you know, because, you know, you go from Boise State to Northeastern Junior College. So recruits are like, okay, like, well, how long are you going to be here at this junior college? I mean, you're at a 4-year school before, you had Division I. Like, are you going to stay here? And, you know, in my mind, it was like, yeah, this is the third school in 3 years for my son. Like, and he's one that doesn't really adjust or like change. And so, yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to make it 4 years and, you know, 4 schools in 4 years. Like, I'm not leaving, you know. I mean, I didn't have any plans to leave. And so it was shortly after finishing that recruiting class that the Coach Pfeiffer, the head coach here, had reached out. And so, and it's funny. So I came out here to visit, though, just to check things out. And, kind of told them, you know, my situation was, yeah, I just recruited a whole class and told them I'd be here. And so I just don't feel right. I don't feel right leaving those guys and those, you know, parents that I just told, like, yeah, I'm going to be here when your kid gets here. I'm going to be here when you get here. And so I said, you know, but if you wait a year, you know, I'll come out. And he's like, I don't know if I can wait a year, you know, hold the position. But, you know, long story short, obviously he did. But, you know, looking back, I'm thinking like, man, that was crazy, because Colorado Mesa is awesome. It's an awesome campus, a great city. Like, this is a great spot to be. And so I'm super thankful to be here. But I think back and I'm like, man, I just told this guy, like, hey, sorry, you know, find somebody else if you need to, but here I am, you know. And Sterling and Northeastern, just not a place I'd want to like live or raise my family. I mean, it's just not my place. And just, yeah, it wasn't where I would have wanted to be long term, you know. You didn't know that, but I felt like, you know, God's sovereign. Like, I felt like it was the right move when I went to Sterling. Like, and it was great, you know. And yeah, thankful for how things have gone. Like, you know, you don't know in the middle of it. And I think you look back and you're like, oh, wow, like, I see like God's sovereignty and everything. And like, I'm at the perfect place. And those places that I were before were all great. But it led me to where I am right now. But I do reflect back, and I'm very thankful. And I told this to the head coach, you know, like, a few times while I was here. And then he just, you know, obviously he retired a couple years ago, and just told him, like, yeah, so thankful that, you know, he didn't have to do that. I mean, he basically went a year without a full-time coach, had some other part-time coaches that just limped him through the year and got him through the year. And then I was out here April 1st, that following year. And then when I got here, you know, and of course, you know, I don't want to say I don't have a trust for administration, but obviously when you move from one place, you go to Boise State and you say, hey, you know, how secure is this program? Oh, this program's secure. And so I was looking back like, well, okay, if I make this move, like, I want this to be my final, like, place. Like, I don't want to move again. Like, there's a lot of moving for my kids, and I'm mindful of that. And my wife's been super supportive through it all. She's been great. And the kids were too. But, you know, so I think they were maybe 4th and 5th grade when we moved here, if I remember right. And that's kind of that age where, you know, still going to make friends pretty quickly. You know, you don't want to move kids. And now, you know, my son's going to be in high school next year, and daughter will be in 8th grade next year. I know. So, like, you know, moving now is a lot more significant than when they're in, you know, 4th and 5th grade. And so, but I was saying that I remember just thinking, I'm like, yeah, like, could have easily said, all right, hey, I appreciate you coming to visit, but I'm finding another coach, you know. And I remember writing him a long email kind of expressing, like, look, this can work, and let me tell you how it can work. Like, it was long. I could put a ton into it. And I'm like, all right, send. Like, and and so you know, it's funny, he just reflects on that. He's like, yeah, you know, I wasn't sure, but then you sent that email, and I'm like, all right, I can make this happen. So here I am. But as I look back. Like it's weird. Like there's a lot to it. And I remember being at the coaches convention. So like the one that Everett was talking about, the one where he wouldn't invite me out. Every time he kept going out, he wouldn't invite me out. That same convention happened in, 06. I want to say maybe it was 05, because they brought this program back in 06. And I remember the president of the NWCA, National Wrestling Coach Association, talking about Colorado Mesa starting a program, saying Grand Junction, beautiful area, and I remember thinking like, my wife would probably like that. But, I was not anything I entertained. It was just a thought that crossed my mind, like, oh, Grand Junction, they're starting a wrestling program. And I was coaching, at Bakersfield in Division I, and I just wasn't even going to consider that. But,
it's crazy how things come kind of full circle in a way.
Exactly. That's what I think about. And, yeah, I think that, God had a plan for me, and it took exactly the pattern and the course that it needed to. And so thankful for where I'm at.
No, I think
we got to thank the president of Boise State then.
Yeah.
Mike, I can tell you, I was in California and didn't even know I was going to be moving to Idaho when they dropped the program. And I remember being sick to my stomach. I'm like, how can they drop a program that's been in the top 10? It just blew my mind. I moved here in 2020, right around COVID. So, things, it's fate, right? You're at where you're at now. You look back and say, man, it was meant to be, right? So I've been living through the aftermath of that program. And I can tell you, I think you knew this when you came there. It was a hidden gem. Right now in Idaho, the level of high school kids, I mean, when won Fargo, we're winning the folk style nationals. I mean, I think you were coaching with Levi Jones. So the aftermath of that, now you got Levi Jones, because he wasn't coaching anymore. Now he's running all in. He's building this big academy. Chris Owens, who left before you came on, he's the national coach, and they're building this program. There's so much going on here, but at the end of the day, what happened. But this is one state that needs a Division I program. I'm telling you, we got like 11 or 12 kids going D1 this year. Last year was around 12 or 14 kids. And that's not even counting Division II. So the talent's here. Everything's happening at the grassroots level. But, after you left, that's sort of everyone that would have been part of that program dispersed and took other actions, right? Got involved in other things. So a lot's going on here. It's too bad it happened, but I think you're happy where you're at in Colorado.
Yeah, no, definitely happy. And when you go there, I mean, just the town, the college, it's an amazing place with a ton of potential. Think back, I remember going to Boise for the first time. I forget when they hosted the I don't know if it was a Pac-10 or Pac-12 tournament at the time, but it might have been in 08, maybe it was, I don't even know, but somewhere in there, like when I was assistant coach at Bakersfield, I remember thinking like, wow, this would be a cool place to coach. Like it's a cool town, a great college. And they're definitely a fun place to be. And
there's there's a lot of support at the grassroots levels. It's growing. It's here. I write about it now. I mean, I was promoting California since I've been here. I've been promoting, and I knew there were some good wrestlers, but I didn't know the depth of what's happening here. But at the end of the day, it's a state that needs D1, and we can talk all day why they dropped it. I'd rather not do this. It makes me sick to my stomach. But nonetheless, sometimes things happen, and as a result, who would have thought Taylor would have taken over Oklahoma State a month ago? We all thought it was going to be someone else, right? Coleman, right. Things change, right? So it is what it is, but it's great that you're doing well there in Mesa. I've heard a lot of good things talking the Hine family. Their kid goes there. I think their daughter's Riley's one of the managers. So they've talked highly of the program. So it's really cool to hear.
Yep, absolutely.
You guys had maybe was it 6 national qualifiers, and all of them were first time qualifying. And I think you end up getting, was it 3 maybe in the round of 12 to place?
Yep.
Yeah, I freaking hate that round. Like, it's a love-hate relationship with that round, but I absolutely hate coaching it just because I feel like you had 3, so you literally had to coach one kid, and then you had to coach another kid, and then you had to coach another kid. For one, like, I guess how do you go from one match where maybe it's just emotions, like it didn't happen the way that you wanted to happen, and then you have to go and coach somebody else? Like, how do you leave that emotion or what happened in that match behind in order to be able to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like at the national tournament too, and one thing too is we fortunate we have like 6 coaches here, and they're all at nationals, and so different guys coaching a different match. So yeah, there's different guys in the corner, and that may help too, I guess, because we're not all in the same corner. But and I feel like the national is like, I don't know. I just feel like you're ready for the next match. I think it's almost easier to do it at nationals than it is at like during like another tournament during the season for some reason. Like I think I'm just, every match is just a different match. And so like you just whatever, I don't know. It feel like it was an easy transition and definitely heartbreak. Like we had a true freshman that was like lost in overtime to, in that blood round. So those are tough ones, yeah, that you just don't want to let go as you're going to the next match. But I think you just realize that it's a different guy in a different match, and you're, I don't know. I guess I don't carry that too much with me. Don't let it wear me down. Like guy wrestled well, and if you don't win and he wrestled well, you feel pretty good about it. So move on to the next match.
It's kind of the same
So Mike, how many
mentality
teams? Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say that's like the same mentality that you kind of tell to the kids, right? It's like, obviously we want to win, but it's like literally just leave it all out there, and maybe you feel a little bit better about it when they do that.
I was going to ask, how many teams are in D2 now? It seems like it's slowly growing. There's some teams growing. Isn't it like Menlo? Now you got Humboldt coming back. Isn't there a few more teams beyond that are coming to Division II that are moving up from the NAIA? Have you heard?
Yeah. So in Vanguard too, I believe, right?
Vanguard too, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I want to say there's 70 programs, might be 69, 70 programs, 72, somewhere in there. Like they've added more and more programs. And obviously there's more programs that are in that transition.
Mhm.
And we'll be at 75 here in a few years,
Wow.
with those programs. So it's growing. I didn't realize this, but I think talking to Ramstetter, who's at Adams State, when I think he mentioned, we were talking, he said there was 38 or 39 or programs and when I was coaching at Adams State, which is 25 years ago. And so like they've added programs and basically almost doubled the number from what there was 20, 24, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah,
I
because
wonder.
Humboldt, you said Vanguard, isn't it? Menlo, those 3 schools, I believe, will be D2 next year or next couple of years, which is really cool. That's nice.
I feel like those numbers are only going to expand. I wonder how much, like with what's happening at the Division I level with NIL and transfer portal. I know that obviously that applies to other divisions, but you see it obviously maybe a little bit more concentrated at the Division I level. If that is going to lead to maybe more schools wanting to, try to do sports with Division II instead. If that maybe has an impact in any way. I mean, even just thinking about it, I'm not sure how many Division I schools would want to go into Division II. I'm not sure how often that happens, but I don't know. I think it's interesting maybe thinking about the implications of what's happening at Division I affecting Division II.
Yeah, I don't know if any Division I programs would go down, but I think it would might cause a Division II school to really think about making that elevation to Division I, and what it takes now is just insane. I mean, it's crazy. Like, and I don't know what the answer solution is for NIL, but it has to pain even the big schools. I mean, because they've got it now. That's a whole other animal that they've added to what they have going on. And it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if there's a way for them to rein that in and control that, but those schools, the Division I schools that are mid-major or lower level, there's just now an even greater gap between them and the top programs, and really even a headache for the top programs, because you've got to do even more now to try and keep up with, the neighbor next to you that's building a big NIL, pot or deals. And yeah, it's crazy.
So, Mike, how does it work? So, say you recruit a kid and you quote 9, you get so many scholarships, and you get 2 or 3 kids that really crafty, and they create an NIL and a product and a name, like an image, and they're making big money. Just say it happens. And they have a scholarship. Do they still keep that scholarship, or do they have the option to say, hey, since you're bringing in X amount of dollars, we would like to help bring more kids on? I mean, how does that work? Do you still keep your scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, they're two separate things. I mean, they're
it's 2 separate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some student athletes who have, great name, image, likeness deals that are pretty lucrative for them. So, yeah, I think the bad thing is, and you'll see this more and more, is like any small school that produces an All-American that has any eligibility left, like good luck keeping them. I mean, it's crazy. Thankfully, like, that doesn't impact Division II, like Division I, and even in the other sports. I mean, you hear about deals for players or whole football team, or it's crazy, the deals that are out there for these student athletes. And I think, looking back, what they wanted to do was open up an opportunity for kids to make money. I mean, they feel like, okay, yeah, these institutions are making money from these student athletes. How about we open the doors and give them an opportunity to make money too? And what I don't think they realize is that it's turned into what it is. I would imagine that they didn't imagine it would turn into what it is now. But
yeah, I wish some of that money, maybe instead of going to the institution or to the NCAA directly, maybe that goes back into like the sport. Like if it was something that, CCB, we win the Pac-12 dual meet championship or something, and then now it's like that money goes towards CCB wrestling instead of just CCB as a whole, or it goes again, you know what I mean? Like if it went back to the athletes in a different way instead of cash. But I don't know. I don't think, I mean, once you kind of open that up, I don't really see anything changing drastically in terms of going back. I think, I don't know too much, but I know there was a lot of like lawsuits that was happening with the NCAA, just with different sports. And I think they've kind of just said, all right, screw it. Like, just let it run. I wonder, to your point, it's like where you see some guys that maybe have success at, not necessarily a lower level program, but you know what I'm talking about, like a smaller school, where, they have success and then they get through the process of the NIL and the transfer portal, go to this other place. I see that a lot, definitely with people that have that COVID eligibility and they maybe have kind of exhausted what they could at that school and maybe have already graduated. I wonder if we're going to continue to see as many guys in the portal after we kind of get through this next year, and maybe one more, just with people that have that COVID eligibility remaining, and see if maybe that changes things. But right now it just feels like it's out of control.
Yeah, the COVID definitely, that definitely is different, added a different element, like obviously extended eligibility and guys graduating, during that time, and then having, an extra year. But even so, like, and now because it's like now you can transfer multiple times. Like you used to like have a one-time transfer exception. Now you can transfer. Like there's no limit on how many times you can transfer. And your eligibility is a lot easier. As long as you were going to be eligible at your last school, you're automatically eligible at your next school. It doesn't so you could transfer at any time. As long as you were, going to be eligible at the school you're at, you transfer to any school, you're eligible automatically.
Trying to think who's transferred the most. I know Austin Gomez was at like
I'd
Iowa
say-
State, and then he was at Wisconsin, and then went to Michigan. I don't think anybody's maybe beaten 3, but three's a lot. Three's a lot.
Yeah, one of those was a transfer, and then the other one he graduated. So which is common. Like guys, that's always existed. Guys graduate, and then maybe they decide to go somewhere else for graduate school and wrestle. Like that's happened. But now I think guys are, I don't know exactly how it happens, how they get reached out to, or I'm not sure. I'm not in the know on that. Don't know.
So I'm sure they can't talk about it, Mike, but I'm sure there's incentives behind the scenes that, well, if you come here for one more year, we will help you with X, Y, Z. And it's probably part of the contract. People just don't get up and go, I mean, there's some schools like, why don't you stay here at Cal Poly or stay here at Arizona State one more year? We're going to have this great, then all of a sudden they take off. I'm sure there's something luring there more than just wrestling.
I mean, I think part of it is just people know. Like, I mean, I haven't seen anything where it's like that phrase, like, show me the receipts, right? It's like, I haven't seen anything hard evidence come out where it's like this booster, or this club coach, or this person, call, the text me or DM me. I think maybe if anything, it might be more of a phone call. But even then, it's like I haven't seen anything like that, like hard evidence on Twitter or Instagram or social media or anything like that. Flo hasn't reported anything like that. But it's more like speculation or like the rumor. It's like, oh, they DM'd him, or oh, they messaged him. They somehow contacted him and offered this absurd amount of money. If you enter the transfer portal and you transfer to us, we're going to give you this amount of money.
The funny thing is, I don't like, because as a coach, you can't orchestrate, or you can't do any of that. But like, what's to stop a booster from doing that? How that's not illegal, So I mean, some booster could just be reaching out to
party
kids. Yeah.
So if you let's say you go back, right, and you have success in college, right, and you're in this day and age, and some boosters like, hey, reach out and we're going to give you $400,000. Like, I mean, that's maybe on the extreme end, but even just $100,000, if you're a broke college kid and you had some success, somebody gives you that amount of money. I mean, who's taking it?
Yeah, I mean, you hear about, I don't know of any specific deals, but you hear that there's those numbers, I don't know, out there, 100,000, but I don't know. I'm not in the know too much on dollar amounts. Everett probably knows. Everett's probably behind the scenes on part of that stuff. Everett, what do you know?
All I was gonna say was I do think that what does happen sometimes is maybe while kids are on trips and things, duels, whatever. You might get some parents talking to some boosters, and kind of that gets the ball rolling a little bit sometimes. And I definitely do think the booster thing does come into play somewhat. I'm not gonna say that's the case always, of course, but I definitely think that does happen a little bit.
I mean, it happens on the high school level. You go on these all-star trips, right? And the parents from different schools, some bigger schools, will talk to the parents of a different school, and they'll be like, hey, we got a good thing over here. You guys should move out here. And we'll try to find you. And I think those conversations happen a lot. I think the people who actually go and follow through with that move is a little bit less. But I'll just say there are kids on our team, and kids, when they've been coming into high school that maybe were going to be pretty good. Everybody kind of knew that. It was like, in one instance, cash was literally thrown at a kid to get him to move, to transfer, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, we hear stories about that, in San Diego. There's big schools we have and things, and I definitely would say the same thing happens at the D1 level without a doubt. Especially, I mean, now of course. And so there's, you might be, like you said, at the All-Star Classic or something, or you're at a duel or something, and then, boosters and parents are talking, and that kind of gets the ball rolling.
So I got a question. I was reading something, according to Business of College Sports, I guess there's only 30 states that allow NAIL. So there's 20 state plus the District of Columbia. There's some states, I guess, don't allow NIL. What do you know, Mike?
Now that you say that, that rings a bell, but I don't know, too much, but man, that's, I think that's obviously some schools that'd be a disadvantage,
Yeah.
that they don't have that. So I know in Colorado, we do here. But yeah, I don't know what states don't have it, but that's interesting.
It's
I think
probably
it'd be,
not any of the states where there's not like a Power 5 conference. Like maybe not in like Vermont or like Connecticut, places like that.
Yeah, but they may have a great basketball team. See, that's the thing. We're thinking wrestling, right? I don't know.
Connecticut's got a good basketball team, but
Yeah.
I don't think Vermont has anything. Sorry, Vermont.
you're gonna offend some of the viewers, dude. We can't.
So, Mike, I got a different question, sort of in the realm of Division II, Division I. Remember back in the day? I mean, Cal State Bakersfield used to be Division II, and if they qualify for the Division I tournament, what's your thoughts if they ever went back to that? Are you for that, qualifying for D1 tournament?
That'd be awesome. That would yeah. I mean, I don't see them ever doing that, but if they did, like, definitely would be a great opportunity. I mean, I think, there was probably a lot more Division II wrestlers back in the 80s and 70s, back in that time that would be able to compete at the Division I tournament.
Cal Poly, Cal State Bakersfield, they're all D2 back then. They had guys placing all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing looking at the record books of Bakersfield and how many like top 10 finishes they would have had, if they allowed because if you qualified guys to the Division I tournament, they didn't do team scoring for those Division II schools, but had they there's a number of top 10 finishes that Cal State Bakersfield would have had. It's crazy.
Yeah, Azevedo, all those guys in the finals, the Cuestas brothers. Yeah, they definitely had some stud teams back in the day.
I remember it might have been on my first unofficial visit. I think I accidentally knocked into maybe it was like Dan Cuestas's bracket that was up on the wall, and it cracked. And I remember being just like crap, like like I messed up, man.
I remember that happening, but I didn't remember it was you. So
it was me. I did it.
Your confession.
I got another funny story. This was on my unofficial visit because it was kind of late in the stage of recruiting. But I remember I asked where the bathroom was, and I think somebody, it was either you or Roscoe, was like, it's down the hall, and like I kind of didn't know which door it was, so like I went left into the coach's locker room. There's a door there. So, it was without getting too intimate, it wasn't, it was a sit down job. And I remember closing the door, and then I came out, and then somebody opened the other door, and there was the bathroom. Like, oh my gosh. So literally it was like in the same trip. Like I knocked over a bracket on the wall. I took a deuce into the coach's locker room. It was like, man. And I think I talked to you that Monday, and you're like, yeah, we'd want you to come down. And I was like, man, I did all that. They still want me to come down. I thought at the time it was the end of the world. Like it was a deal breaker. I have another thing too. So after, I decided I wanted to go to CSUB. I remember, I went on Flow Wrestling, and that's kind of the spot in high school, like where if I wanted wrestling information, that's where I would go, that or YouTube. And Flow Wrestling had come down to do a visit, and Everett kind of stole the show, I think, in a lot of the videos. And one of the big things was this takedown series that you guys had, where I think Everett might have gotten the first, I'm gonna do air quotes, takedown, and it was because he shot you into the crash pad. And that was like a point of contention where it was like, should we count that? And again, kind of just adding to your profile, you kind of bullied Everett into not counting it.
You did. I remember that. I remember when it happened, you said it didn't count. That's cheating. And I said, you always yell at me about being aware of my surroundings, because you would yell at me if I be against the wall or something and tell me just keep wrestling. And I was like, you always yell at me about being aware of my surroundings. I was like, you need to be aware of your surroundings. And you proceeded to beat the crap out of me after that. I remember you really
I
put me through it after that. And then you had the team vote on it. And the team was divided like 50-50. You gave me the final choice, and like half the guys on the team, I remember like Coleman was one of the guys that voted against counting it. He's like, I'm gonna be honest, I think we should count it, Pratt, but I'm afraid of what Mendoza will do to me if I vote for you.
That's funny. You know, I think I probably I remember that now. It's such a that's a funny story. But I remember now maybe just telling you, and really this is part of like helping you understand. Like, Everett, would you like I wouldn't want to count that. Like maybe you want to count that as a legitimate takedown, but if you really want to like take credit for taking somebody down, do you want it to be because like you shoved him into a crash pad and took advantage? You know what I mean? Would you really, is that how you'd really want to get a takedown?
That's
And
exactly
so
what you told me.
I remember that. Yeah, I wouldn't take credit for that. That's just me. But you can be whatever man you want to be. It was your
Yeah,
opportunity to decide what kind of man you want to be. A guy that likes to cheat to win, or a guy that wants to win honestly. And you made the right choice. I want to commend you for that.
And I think one piece of the story we didn't add is like you couldn't cut your hair, right? Until you got a takedown.
yeah. I remember I couldn't fit my hats for a while because I had so much hair. It was ridiculous. I went a while too before I got a official takedown, I guess. Which I think I got off of like a drag or something, which was ridiculous. But
Ever,
yeah,
your hair was getting longer than I wanted it to be honest. And so whatever the takedown was, it was you needed a haircut. That's
You said the same thing in the video. You said the same. It was the same thing.
that was the
So I
excuse.
don't know if this is just something that you just remember. Like I don't
no,
know.
well,
I don't know,
obviously,
man.
obviously it's true because I wouldn't, you know me, I don't remember stuff like that. I'm not like Roscoe the elephant. You know, he's got a memory, remembers everything, right? Is that right? Is that the saying? Like a memory of an elephant? Is that right?
Elephant never forgets.
Yeah.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah. So if I'm saying it again, it must be true, right?
I mean, I don't know if it was true or not. I like to believe that I just got the takedowns.
So we could say you got 2 takedowns. We could say that.
I
Do you
mean,
think you
I
can
don't know
take
if
him
I'm
down
gonna say
now?
that. I don't know. I don't know. I think
You can
Mendoza's been
takedowns
in the
right
room a
now,
lot.
run it back.
He's been right now
Everett
over
knows.
Zoom, over Zoom match.
Everyone's been training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I've been working out a lot more.
You still wrestle? You still put your shoes on?
I haven't put my shoes on in probably since last season. So it's been a while since I've been in the room. I think last season was the last time I've been in the room, but definitely been training a lot, but just not wrestling.
Well, hey guys, we've been going for a little over an hour. I know it's a little late. I had maybe another question about recruiting, and then Al, I don't know if you have any more questions after.
I was going to ask him the same thing about where he recruits and his philosophy of recruiting.
So you had it wasn't a home visit, right? You have a recruit over right now. Like maybe talk us through that and maybe what that recruiting process is like.
Yeah, I mean, I think just recruiting, you just want they're bringing guys that like first thing I think is like academically is like the first thing we look at. Like I the more and more you realize like guys in high school, I think if they have shown they've been successful academically in high school, like that they can do it in college. That their GPA most of the time will mirror what it is in college. I'd say. I mean, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, but more often it can go down than up, I would say. But I like coaching wrestling. And I think when you recruit students that can take care of the student part, then there's less that we have to do on that end, and we can focus and pour more time and energy into the coaching side. We certainly still do study hall and things like that and stay on guys' academics, especially in their first, couple years. There's a lot more hands-on or monitoring of that. But I think that's the first checkpoint. And then, we recruit mostly Colorado guys, but yeah, we have some from other states, just a new kid, Saya Thompson from Bishop Kelly there is coming here next year. So,
Yeah, Draven. Yeah. Nice
yeah.
kid.
Yeah. But yeah, I think just bringing in guys that, obviously that love wrestling, that like to wrestle. I think that's super important. I mean, you go to college and it's got to be one of those things that you love to do. You're not always going to love it at every moment during the season, right? There's always times where wrestling gets tough, and I think even as freshmen, that transition's always harder your freshman year for whatever reason. Like for just sometimes it's just transitioning to a new place and a little bit of homesickness and just adjusting to being on your own and being independent and growing up and making good decisions. And so I think it's it's challenging in your freshman year. It can be. And so, but guys that love wrestling want to be good, like good character matters, want guys that want to be serious about wrestling and serious about their schoolwork. I mean, you have 5 years to, do the best you can in your wrestling career and then graduate. And you want the guys that want to be focused on those two things.
Yeah, academics are important. I was always into academics. I mean, I look back on all the stuff you've done. I mean, Boise State, they had some of the highest academics there when you were there. Cal State Bakersfield, same thing. Obviously, you're doing that here. The kid from Rocky Mountain, Caden Hayden, he's an engineering student, top-notch student and stuff. I've seen Colorado wrestlers. There's a lot of talent there that I've seen them at the Doc B and stuff. So it is a state with a wealth of talent. How many divisions do they have? Like 4 or 5?
They have 4, I think.
Yeah. So what's your thought of their state championship tournament? Obviously, have you been to their state championship compared to go and watching the California, which is one division? I heard they packed that place in Colorado.
It's packed. Yeah, it's an unbelievable event. So yeah. There's 4 divisions, and now they added the women's division as well. So they sanctioned women's state tournament. But a few years ago, the females were wrestling in the males division. So now they've separated that, and so you have the 4 divisions plus now the women's division as well. But it's unbelievable. So
I heard it's packed.
Yes. Man bracket, and the ball arena used to be the Pepsi Arena, but now it's the ball arena is packed. It's an awesome event, and definitely, like you said, Colorado wrestling. There's a lot of talent here in this state. So
yeah, more than people think. I've seen them at Doc B, some of them at Fargo, and there's some solid kids coming out of there that are pretty tough. So.
I had Mitch Feinsilver on last week. I'm gonna drop the podcast on tomorrow. But, obviously I asked him about the divisions, right? Because it's, between him and his 3 brothers, all of them are pretty tough. And, his thing was like, just because you have so many like really small towns and you have that mix of like those small plains towns like Sterling, and you got small mountain towns. It's like maybe getting some of those smaller divisions, like the 3 and 4 division, maybe putting them together, maybe making it just a 2 division state tournament might be better. But it's interesting. It's like asking people, because we have that conversation, I feel like I don't know, once every couple of weeks, about divisions, and I think it's something that there are people in California that want to keep it just that pure, like one division, who's the best. And I think as a fan, I think it's awesome. Just as a general wrestling fan, but I think, coming from being in a smaller school when I was in high school, it's like, man, would it have been cool to go and possibly would have had a higher likelihood of placing and maybe having the confidence then, knowing that I was better because I placed. But, because I didn't place, it was like, I suck. I'm not good enough to wrestle, Division I, which, I mean, may or may not have been true at the time. But, I think that perspective changes when they earn a medal in a different, in a different kind of setting. But I go back and forth on it, I feel like, all the time, keeping it pure. And I think on the one hand too, it's like, it's our job as coaches to help give these kids confidence too. It's like, it doesn't matter if they get a medal or not ultimately. Like, it's kind of like what you said earlier with, that true freshman that wrestled in the blood round, lost in overtime. It's like, well, did you do everything that you could? You feel like, do you have any regrets? And if the answer is, yeah, I did everything I could, I don't have any regrets, then that's okay. You do what you needed to do, and, good job. And let's move forward and let's try to get better next time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to value the fact that it is one division, and I liked it a lot more. And I think maybe in some states, maybe there's too many divisions. And I'm not real familiar with Utah, but I feel like they've got a lot of divisions. And that kid, he's a 4-timer from Utah, but he definitely has confidence. Would he be a 4-timer if it was all one division? I don't know, but his first loss in the postseason was this year as a freshman in our regional tournament. Like, he had not lost in the postseason in his whole like high school for how many ever years, but like his high school career, didn't lose in the postseason. And so I think when you're used to winning, like you expect it. And he's come a long way as a true freshman. It's impressive, for sure. But going back to California, like, I'm surprised that it hasn't turned into like 2 divisions, just because you'd think like CIF can, make some money, monetize going into 2 different divisions and having, I don't know how many people, is it 40 now for the a bracket? How many?
40-man bracket.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
gone
it's 40.
up. That has increased over the last few years. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And it's 3 days. It's a 3-day state tournament.
yeah. And so, does it make, and which is crazy, but maybe going back to 2 divisions and, whatever it would be, 24 or 32-man bracket. I mean, there's enough there to enough schools there to, I guess, to, have a reason to have 2 32-man brackets and, have that many more fans and that many more ticket sales and that many, I'm surprised CIF hasn't moved in that direction. And
if they want to grow it, right, Mike, grow the sport, you would have more divisions. Because at the end of the day, like the kid that's was undefeated in Utah, did he wrestle at Fargo? I mean, did he, you can monitor and say, yeah, he's a 4-timer, but did he place at Fargo Super 32 or not? Or is he just this unknown guy you just recruited? Because there's a lot of guys. I mean, I don't know I think Division 2. I think Division 1's like 1.2% of kids in high school go to Division 1. I think Division 2 is like around the same that go on to the next level in college. So you're talking 98% of high school kids never even go to college. So why not give more opportunity to help grow the sport? Maybe you get a few more kids.
Yeah, and I think you also get some kids, and even if they didn't go on to college, like, how many more kids might be a little bit more connected to the sport, want to get back into it, and maybe coach at a level, and then just be able to get back to the sport of wrestling in that way as well. I think it definitely would probably retain more people in the sport. Not that people leave it. I think wrestling's a unique sport, and like it always, like, it's just different. Like, it holds on to you probably more than most sports. But yeah, having a level of success definitely maybe keeps you involved longer in the sport too, whether it is go on to college and then come back and coach, or just jump right into coaching.
Yeah, because like in Idaho, you leave Boise, you start heading east, you got Bonners Ferry, you got Declo. You're talking an area where they may have 100 kids in the whole high school. It's hard to, you're not going to recruit too many kids. So it'd be more difficult for them to be in a 1 division, where now they have a little bit of better chance to place. And they do get a few good kids out of those areas once in a while, but they're doing the off-season wrestling as well. So, but yeah.
And it's funny, I always think like certain states, and you forget about it, but you have multiple kids from one team in a bracket at state, right? And
Idaho
so
has 2.
yeah, that's that it's a unique
That is
yeah,
weird.
yeah.
Well, that happens. I know that happens at NAI. That doesn't happen in Division II, right? Where you don't get to bring like certain. And then JC, it was something like that too, where you got to maybe bring 2 extra guys.
Not junior college and not Division II.
Cal
not-
JUCO does.
Not Cal JUCO does, not National JUCO.
Right.
That's weird. I think it's cool for the sake of like, you get to bring more people to your team. But it's just weird. It's different.
So women's wrestling does that. They can bring 15 to their postseason, and so you can qualify 15 gals to the national tournament, which I think for women's wrestling, for growing wrestling, because it's when you go to college, like you want to be the guy, and a lot of people that are going to college were the guy or the gal, the person in the starting spot, right? And so you're used to that, and then you jump into college and it's like, man, I don't want to be the backup again, or I don't want to be behind. But like so for gals, for girls wrestling and growing, women's wrestling at the collegiate level, I think it's a great thing. I think they're going to, once they get sanctioned as an NCAA championship tournament, that'll probably go to 10. But for now, it's 15, and I think it's great. So we have a women's program here, and our women's coach was talking about it. I said, I think it's great. I mean, when you can grow and develop and bring, basically half another lineup with you, so good for the sport. But moving forward, that'll probably change once they have an NCAA championship, which will happen soon.
Do you guys share a room?
We do.
Is that maybe kind of a hard time trying to figure out like timing and times of practices and stuff like that?
No, they practice at 1:00 and we practice at 3:15. So, yeah, not too much. And, they're good with us bringing, if we have a guy that wants to go and drill during their practice time on an end of the wrestling room, they're good with it. And we are too. So yeah, hasn't been difficult at all.
Well, cool, man. I know it's getting a little bit late over there, and it's getting close to family time on a weekday. But I appreciate you coming on, and I hope this was fun.
It was, and thanks for inviting Everett. Or did Everett talk to you yesterday and ask to invite me, or how'd that work?
I was thinking actually on my way home, I was like, who would be like kind of fun just to randomly ask? And I called them, and I don't know, Everett, you want to tell your story? You could Everett, you tell the story. You tell it from your perspective.
Yeah, maybe an hour, 2 hours ago, I just get a random call from you, and I actually assumed it was gonna be this. It was my assumption because you asked me what I was up to, and then I was like, nothing. I'm getting ready to go to the gym in like an hour, and you said, "Hey, I've been doing, for my podcast. Coach Mendoza is gonna be on. Do you want to be on?" And I was like, let me think about it because I was like, I haven't worked out this week. I took yesterday off, and I was like, I feel kind of lazy. Like I really should probably go to the gym. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I can go to the gym afterwards. I'll be there. The gym's not gonna leave. So
you know what, Everett? You just never fail to disappoint me and hurt my feelings, right? If Batista called me and said, "Hey, I got Everett's going to come on. Do you want to come on?" I'd say, "Oh, I haven't seen Everett in a while. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to." Oh, I had plans with it didn't matter what plans I had. If I had plans with my wife, my family, wrestler, what I haven't seen Everett in a while, is a once in a lifetime chance to catch up with them. I'm going to take it. But obviously, my feelings towards you are not the same as your feelings towards me.
hey, if it makes you feel any better, though, I told Brian, let me think about it for 10 seconds, and then 10 seconds went by. I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So you didn't think about it, and I'm happy to hear that you wouldn't even think about it, but I only thought about it for 10 seconds. It took me 10 seconds to make the decision. I was like, you know what? Those are my words to Brian. I said, give me 10 seconds, Brian. And then after 10 seconds, I said, yeah, I'm going to do it.
That's starting to sound like an excuse, not like an apology.
I also told Brian I was going to be on for 20 minutes.
Well, now I just think you didn't want to go to the gym.
No,
Hey.
I'm going to go right after this.
Hey,
Well,
I
Mike,
need to get arm in shape so that way if Mendoza challenges me to a takedown, I can defend myself. You know, if it happened right now at this moment, I'm not sure I could do it, but I got to make sure that I'm in tip-top shape so I can, just in case.
Yep. Hey, Mike, it's a pleasure being on the podcast with you. I'm really happy you're doing well at Colorado Mesa. Been, being a promoter, even back in California, been tracking everything you've been doing. I'm here in Idaho. I'm a point of contact. So if you ever want to know anything about any of the wrestlers here, I can sort of help lead you the way. We can talk offline. But
Yeah.
I promote the kids here, right? There's a lot going on here. So just another resource. If you want to look this way, we got some good kids.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe I'll get your number. Batisto can send our numbers.
Yeah.
If you can, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just the same thing I can do, just being a point of contact. If I don't know, I know where to go and work with kids. You have any interest in kids here? Got a lot of kids that are wrestling off season, want to go to that next level. So, they're right fit. They're the right fit, right? So, yep.
Did you end up finding our course times?
No,
You ran an 18, Brian.
but I will find them.
I'm just saying for the record, like I did get faster, but there's an asterisk next to it because the course length was different. So I think my record, I want to say was like low 16 at the time when you were there, but then when you left, it's weird. I got way faster. So just for the record,
Really?
no big deal.
I say I'm in the mid 16s, high 16s. When Mendoza, his final year there, I was probably, I'm gonna say around like 1640s if I had to take a wild guess.
1640s, huh?
That's my guess, somewhere around there. It was probably like my PR, my fastest time ever, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, I can stop recording, but again, coach, just thank you for coming on. And anytime you want to come on again, like I'm always down.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. It's fun. Yeah, good seeing you guys. And
Great seeing you, Coach. I'm happy to hear that things are going well for you, that you're enjoying it.
That was episode 55 with Mike Mendoza. Again, thank you guys for following along and enjoying the show. If you guys can, leave a like, comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to us on Spotify. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Thank you guys for enjoying the show. We'll see you guys next time.